Let's watch a couple clips of Emma Vigeland, one of my personal favorite commentators, along with Luke Beasley on the Piers Morgan show during a panel that quickly got spicy as Emma was pulling no punches and not really playing nice either, which we love to see. So I've lined up what I thought were some of the best moments, and we'll be back after with the needed context.
Yeah, let me
like what great losers you are. All I've seen is a lot of squealing and resigning from platforms because they lost.
You're doing a huge disservice to your audience, putting on the same discussion, trying to overthrow an election, putting together fake electors to prevent the peaceful transfer of power, trying to get local officials to find fraudulent votes that don't exist. You're putting that on the same in the same category as people just being upset, like has happened every time people lose, always, in a way that's completely peaceful. And I've gone through this before on this show specifically, which is you have to look at people in positions of power to really get a sense of the significant responses we're seeing to certain things. So when you look at powerful Democrats, I told you before, Vice President Harris, Biden with character and integrity respected these results, whereas Trump, him being the person in a position of power, not some random person on TikTok, didn't do that.
I agree. Listen, you know what, Luke?
Yeah, the response from MAGA has been a bit weird, to say the least, right? It's like something you'd see after like somebody's football team wins. It's like half of them telling me Trump is my daddy and something of the sort, with the other half doing, as Luke is explaining, what Piers is doing right here, right? Where they pretend or assert themselves that the left is just so distraught or upset from this. I've had people like comment on my videos trying to tell me that I'm about to cry. Like, no, I'm not, but thank you for the psychoanalysis there. And the evidence is always, look at this blue-haired liberal crying on TikTok, which is weird because if we want to measure responses to losing, MAGA stormed the Capitol, did millions of dollars in damage to the Capitol, and got people killed, then denied the results of them losing for the next 4 years. And the Democrats cried a bit on Twitter. So like, which one is more damaging to society? But this is something you can even extrapolate further in terms of looking to the leadership, like Luke mentioned at the end, where Trump himself will call Kamala a fascist, a Marxist, a criminal, all of these personal insults. Trump himself will say all Democrats are vermin or criminals, that they're poisoning the blood of our country, that they're trying to steal and ruin our country. He himself will say that, while meanwhile Kamala herself will not insult Trump at all, didn't call him Hitler, didn't even outright call him a fascist herself, just said that, yeah, his staff did, won't say that he's a criminal, won't say all these things, but gets attacked for it even more because it's something the left on Twitter does. People on the right will say, the left is so divisive in this country because look on Twitter, despite you can look to their leadership, and it's like, of course, Trump doesn't get called out for MAGA for doing it personally himself.
Nancy Mace, who loves a camera in her face and loves attention wherever she can get it, I find it pretty disgusting that she is basically implying that this trans lawmaker, just by being in her presence in the bathroom, may rape her. I do choose to speak up for women's rights. I believe that I do so on my program, The Majority Report, regularly. And I'm disgusted that Nancy Mace has decided essentially to support Donald Trump wholeheartedly, who has been found liable of sexual abuse in court, and multiple of his cabinet appointments, picks, including Pete Hegseth and Matt Gaetz, have been credibly accused of sexual assault themselves. So apparently it's triggering for her because someone's genitalia may be slightly different in the stall next to her.
When you say credibly accused,
but it doesn't matter to her that Trump has been found liable of sexual assault in court. Piers,
time out.
Piers, has Trump been found liable of sexual assault in court with
Trump was
Here she's referring to Nancy Mace and Republicans' vitriolic response to the first trans Congresswoman, Sarah McBride, being elected, and how they're already doing transphobia, trying to restrict her bathroom access, and, perfectly normal human reactions that you could, of course, expect from MAGA, pretending as if her mere existence raises the threat level of them being sexually assaulted in the bathroom, despite gender-neutral bathrooms showing no added level of sexual assault, and trans people more often being the victim rather than the perpetrator of sexual violence, especially when they're in the bathroom that doesn't align with their gender identity. Kind of shocking, I know. Who would have thought this marginalized group would be the victims, not the perpetrators? It's this kind of nefarious stigmatization that is always unfairly placed on these kinds of marginalized groups, right? The idea that a trans woman going to the bathroom is inherently sexual and predatorial and perverted. It's the same basis in which we used to justify segregating based off race, right? Like, oh, well, black people inherently want to rob and kill us, so we can't go to the bathroom with them. And at some point as a society, we have to decide to draw the line in oppressing others' rights just so the bigots can feel more comfortable.
If we talk about abortion, all hell breaks loose. Women should be protected. Women must feel safe. Women must have rights. Women should have autonomy over their bodies. And yet when it comes to sport, you're quite happy for biological males, or let's put it this way.
You know what?
Put it this way. Hang on. You've got to let me finish a question.
I think it's a little different.
You've got
than
to let me finish a
bleeding out
question.
in parking lots because they can't
Sorry,
get their health care.
Emma, you really are not familiar with how these things work.
No, Piers.
You have to let me ask a question.
Should Yao Ming have been banned from the NBA because he's too tall? I mean, we've got to make it be fair in competition.
I tell you what's not fair.
He towered over these
when
other
you have
players.
when you have a boxer in the Women's Olympics boxing winning a gold medal who has male chromosomes and who beat up one of his opponents.
Okay, based on a Russian,
beat up one of his opponents, her opponents, whatever you want to call this boxer.
That is what they determine.
Please.
Yeah, this idea of trying to conflate trans people in sports, something that affects maybe 20 people, to women's reproductive rights, something that affects thousands. I mean, more women have died from lack of reproductive rights than women have played with a trans athlete in sports, right? It's just wildly disingenuous, nor are they really analogous in any way. Abortion is about bodily autonomy. It's about healthcare, about allowing women the decision to do what they think is best for their own body and their own health, the same right we afford everybody else, while trans people in sports is about like competition and inclusion. And when we talk about competition will never be fair, as Emma started to point out here before she was rudely interrupted by Piers. If what we care about so much as erasing biological advantages from sports, should Shaq and Yao Ming be banned from basketball because of the way they towered over everyone else? Like, what, should anyone 7'2" or over be banned from basketball because it's not fair to the people who are just 6 feet, right? What about the people who are 6'5", 6'6"? Is that not fair to the people who are 5'10" and want to play basketball? Like, where do we draw the line for these biological advantages? And we know, like, if a trans woman follows the guidelines after transitioning and being in sports, that the advantages are minimized to levels that are under what could be seen naturally. And then obviously, again, like if you go into like the societal disadvantages they have from the stigmatization, the social pressures, the like the backlash they can receive, is actually more disadvantages than advantages or anything like that. But if a biological woman was born to be more fit than a trans woman following these guidelines, should she just be banned as well? Because that woman would have the same advantages, if not more advantages, than we're saying the trans person has, and it's why they're being banned. So again, it just kind of opens this slippery slope of like exclusion if we do that, which is why it's better to just stick to inclusion, a core facet of equality, which is a human right. And in realizing that in it being a human right, that makes inclusion the default, and the burden can then fall on those who are trying to exclude, not on those who are wanting to be included.